The bell above the pharmacy door chimed, and my stomach dropped before I even looked up. Margaret Carter's Louboutins clicked against the linoleum like bullets hitting their mark. 1, 2, 3, 4, each step bringing her closer to my counter, her Hermes scarf knotted tight around her neck like a noose of wealth and privilege. I'm Jenna, and until 30 seconds ago, I was having a perfectly normal Tuesday. "We need to discuss your little arrangement with my son," Margaret announced, her voice carrying across the empty pharmacy. Her perfectly manicured nails drummed against the counter, creating a rhythm that matched my quickening pulse. "Ryan and I are engaged, Margaret. It's hardly an arrangement." I kept my voice steady, continuing to count pills into their bottles. Years of practice had taught me that showing weakness around Margaret Carter was like bleeding in shark-infested waters. "Oh, darling," she laughed, the sound sharp enough to cut glass. "That's precisely what we need to discuss. I've just learned some rather interesting information about your father's financial situation." My hands stilled over the prescription bottles. "My father's finances are none of your business. Everything in this town is my business." She reached into her designer handbag, pulling out a manila envelope. "Especially when it concerns my only son's future. Did you really think you could hide your father's bankruptcy from us?" The word hit me like a physical blow. Bankruptcy? That couldn't be right. Dad would have told me if things were that bad. "I see from your expression this is news to you." Margaret's smile widened, predatory and pleased. "How unfortunate. Well, here's what's going to happen. You're going to end things with Ryan, quietly and amicably. If you don't..." She tapped the envelope. "Let's just say there are certain details about your father's business practices that would interest the local papers." "You're blackmailing me?" "I prefer to think of it as protecting my family's interests." She slid the envelope across the counter. "You have 24 hours to make the right decision. And Jenna?" Her eyes locked onto mine, cold and calculating. "Don't test me on this. Your mother learned that lesson the hard way 25 years ago." She turned and walked away, leaving behind the envelope and the scent of expensive perfume. The bell chimed again, somehow more ominous than before. I stood there, fingers pressed against the envelope, my engagement ring catching the fluorescent light. The diamond Ryan had so proudly presented 3 months ago now felt like it was burning into my skin. My phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. "Dinner tonight? Mom's acting weird. We should talk." I looked at the envelope again, then at my phone. Margaret Carter had just declared war, but she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated exactly how far I would go to protect the people I love. I found my parents in their kitchen, the manila envelope burning a hole in my bag. Mom was at the stove, stirring something that smelled like childhood comfort, while Dad sat at the table, shoulders hunched over a stack of papers. The sight of those documents made my stomach clench. "Is it true?" The words came out harder than I intended. "Are we bankrupt?" Dad's pen stopped moving. Mom's spoon clattered against the pot. "Who told you?" Dad's voice was barely a whisper. "Margaret Carter paid me a visit today." I pulled out the envelope, letting it fall onto the table between us. She seemed quite informed about our family's finances. Mom's face went white. She gripped the counter, knuckles matching the pale ceramic tiles. "That woman never changes." "What do you mean?" I looked between them. "Mom?" "Linda, don't." Dad reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "No, David. She needs to know." Mom wiped her hands on her apron, a tremor in her movements. "Margaret Carter destroyed my life once before. I won't let her do it to you." The kitchen seemed to shrink as Mom told her story. 25 years ago, she'd been engaged to Richard Carter, Margaret's now husband. Margaret, threatened by Mom's relationship with her childhood friend, had orchestrated a scandal that forced them apart. Richard married Margaret instead, never knowing the truth. "She made sure everyone believed I was after Richard's money," Mom's voice cracked. "The rumors spread so fast. Even your father believed them at first." "Until I saw through Margaret's lies," Dad added softly. "But by then, the damage was done." My phone buzzed again. Another message from Ryan. I ignored it. And now she's using Dad's bankruptcy to break up my engagement? The pieces click together like a toxic puzzle. History repeating itself? The bankruptcy isn't final, Dad said quickly. We're in negotiations. If we can secure a new investor, which Margaret probably scared away, I finished. Just like she's trying to scare me away from Ryan. Mom's hands shook as she turned off the stove. Jenna, maybe you should consider. No, I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. I won't let her win, not this time. Careful, sweetheart, Dad warned. Margaret Carter has connections we can't fight. I thought of the way Margaret had smiled in the pharmacy, so sure of her power. Maybe that's been the problem all along. Nobody's ever really fought back. My phone lit up with Ryan's face, a third call. This time I answered. Hey! His voice was worried. Mom's acting strange. She keeps talking about wedding postponements and family reputation. What's going on? I looked at my mother, seeing the ghost of her younger self in her eyes. We need to talk, Ryan. There's something you should know about your mother. The time for running from Margaret Carter was over. Now it was time to run straight at her. The attic of my parents' house smelled like forgotten memories and dust. I'd been digging through boxes for hours, searching for anything that might help me understand the full scope of Margaret's vendetta. Mom's revelation about her past with Richard had sparked something, a suspicion that there was more to uncover. Behind a stack of old photo albums, I found a wooden box with a broken clasp. Inside, yellowed envelopes and newspaper clippings told a story Mom had never finished. I thought I'd find you up here. Ryan's voice made me jump. He stood in the attic doorway, his face half-shadowed. You missed our dinner. I can explain. The papers trembled in my hands. Can you? He stepped closer, picking up a newspaper clipping. Because Mom claims you're trying to destroy our family with lies about the past. Lies? I grabbed the clipping from him. Look at this, Ryan. Your mother didn't just break up my mom and your dad. She systematically destroyed 3 other engagements in town. All women she saw as threats. That was decades ago. Was it? I pulled out a more recent article. Claire Peterson, 2019. Remember her? Your college girlfriend who suddenly transferred schools? The article says her father's company faced unexpected audit problems right after you got serious with her. Ryan's face paled. That was just a coincidence? Like the bankruptcy papers Margaret somehow knew about before my own father did? My fingers brushed something else in the box. A letter in Margaret's distinctive handwriting. As I read it, my blood turned to ice. What is it? Ryan asked. A letter to your father, dated 2 weeks before he married your mother. My voice shook. If you choose her over me, I'll make sure everyone knows about the missing hospital funds. Your career will be over before it begins. Linda may love you, but I can destroy you both. Ryan snatched the letter, reading it twice. This can't be real. It's your mother's signature, Ryan. She blackmailed your father into marriage. Stop. He crumpled the letter. Just stop. I can't. Because she's doing it again, to us. She's not just threatening my family's reputation. She's orchestrating our bankruptcy. I found records of calls between her and Dad's biggest investors. Ryan slumped against a dusty trunk. Why are you doing this? Because I love you. I knelt beside him. And because someone needs to stop her before she ruins another family. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Margaret's here. She knows about the box. Ryan and I locked eyes. In the distance, we heard the front door slam, followed by Margaret's voice, sharp with fury. Well, I said, gathering the evidence. Looks like she's saved us the trouble of confronting her. Ryan grabbed my arm. Jenna, wait. There's something else you need to know about my mother. She's not my real mother. Ryan's words hung in the attic air like suspended dust. Dad told me last year, when I got engaged to you. Margaret blackmailed him into keeping it secret all these years. The box of evidence slipped from my fingers, scattering papers across the floor. Below, Margaret's voice grew louder, demanding to see us. That's why she's so obsessed with social standing, Ryan continued, his voice hollow. She was Dad's secretary. When she got pregnant, She threatened to expose his affair with Mom, your mom, unless he married her instead. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. So you're Linda Thompson's son. He met my eyes. Your half-brother. The attic door burst open. Margaret stood there, her perfect composure cracking at the edges. Behind her, my mother's face was ash white. I see Richard couldn't keep his mouth shut after all, Margaret spat. Well, now you know. Are you happy, Jenna? You've torn apart 2 families instead of 1. I grabbed the crumpled letter from the floor. You did that yourself, 25 years ago. I did what I had to do to survive. Margaret's mask slipped, revealing something desperate underneath. You have no idea what it's like to come from nothing, to know one mistake could send you back there. So you made sure everyone else lost everything instead? My voice shook. The bankruptcies, the ruined engagements, all to protect your lie? Mom, Ryan's voice cracked on the word. How could you? Don't call me that. Margaret's eyes blazed. Not now. I raised you, I loved you. Isn't that enough? You loved what I represented, Ryan said. Your ticket to respectability. My mother stepped forward, reaching for Ryan, but he backed away from all of us. The engagement ring on my finger felt like it was burning through my skin. I'll destroy you all, Margaret whispered. 1 phone call and your father's company is finished. Richard's reputation, gone. Everything you love, turned to ash. No. The word came out stronger than I felt. You won't, because I'm not running away like the others did. I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who you are. Choose carefully, Jenna. Margaret's smile was razor sharp. Blood may be thicker than water, but scandal destroys everything it touches. Ryan looked between us. His biological mother, the woman who raised him, and me, his almost wife, now his sister. The weight of impossible choices filled the room. My phone buzzed. A text from Richard Carter. Don't let her win. I have proof of everything. Meet me tonight. Sometimes, I realized, revenge isn't about destroying someone else. Sometimes it's about finally telling the truth, no matter how much it hurts. The Carter mansion loomed before me, its windows gleaming like predatory eyes in the twilight. Richard's text had led me here, but something felt wrong. The front door stood slightly ajar, spilling warm light onto the portico. Inside, voices drifted from Richard's study. I recognized Margaret's cultured tones, followed by Richard's deeper rumble. As I crept closer, their words became clear. You really think telling her everything will fix this? Margaret's laugh was brittle. Our son is devastated. Our son? Richard's voice cracked like a whip. You've spent 30 years pretending he's yours. The game is over, Margaret. I pressed against the wall, heart hammering. A drawer opened, papers rustled. The proof you promised Jenna, Margaret asked. Those adoption papers won't change anything. I'm still the only mother Ryan's ever known. Along with these, Richard's voice hardened. Bank statements showing how you've been systematically destroying David Thompson's business, threatening his investors, calling in loans early, all to force Jenna away from Ryan. My fingers curled into fists. The bankruptcy wasn't just revenge, it was calculated destruction. You'll destroy everything, Margaret whispered. Our reputation, our family. You did that yourself. A new voice, Ryan's, made me jump. He stepped out of the shadows behind me, his face carved from stone. Hello, Jenna. Dad invited me too. We entered the study together. Richard stood behind his desk, holding a thick folder. Margaret's perfect makeup couldn't hide her pallor. The charity gala, Richard said, handing me the folder. Tomorrow night. Every society member who matters will be there. The perfect stage for the truth. You wouldn't dare, Margaret hissed. I opened the folder. 3 decades of lies, manipulation, and destruction laid bare in black and white. My fingers trembled over the adoption papers. Proof of my connection to Ryan, proof of everything we'd lost. Actually, I said, I would. Then you'll destroy Ryan too. Margaret's smile was vicious. Every whisper, every rumor about his real mother, about your mother. Is revenge worth watching your brother suffer? Ryan's hand found mine, squeezing once. a gesture that said everything about what we'd been, what we could never be again. The gala starts at 8, I said, closing the folder. Your choice, Margaret. Resign from the board quietly, divorce Richard with dignity, or watch everything burn. You sound just like me, Margaret whispered, using people's secrets against them. Maybe we're not so different after all. The words hit like a physical blow. In my quest for justice, had I become what I hated most? Ryan's phone chimed, a message from my mother. Whatever happens tomorrow, remember who you're really fighting for. The line between justice and revenge had never felt thinner. The charity gala sparkled with wealth and pretense, a perfect stage for destruction. I clutched my champagne flute, watching Margaret work the room like the queen she pretended to be. The evidence folder sat heavy in my clutch, waiting for the perfect moment. Last chance to back out, Ryan murmured, appearing at my elbow. The tuxedo couldn't hide how tired he looked, how broken. Are you asking as my almost husband or my brother? His wince made me regret the words immediately. Before he could respond, Margaret clinked her glass for attention. Time to begin her annual charity speech. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, resplendent in designer silk. Tonight we celebrate. Why don't we celebrate the truth? My voice carried across the ballroom. Conversations died, glasses stilled. About how you destroyed my mother's life. About how you blackmailed Richard Carter into marriage. About how you're not even Ryan's real mother. The silence turned deadly. Margaret's smile never wavered. Poor Jenna, she said softly, clearly struggling with her father's bankruptcy, making wild accusations. I have proof. I opened my clutch, reached for the folder, and found nothing. Margaret's smile widened. Looking for these? She pulled the documents from behind the podium. Amazing what a spare key and an hour's head start can accomplish. The room spun. She'd known. She'd been waiting. Shall I tell them what really happened? Margaret's voice turned silk sharp. About how Linda Thompson seduced a married man. About how she got pregnant and tried to trap him. About how she spent years poisoning her daughter against me. My mother stood up from her table. That's not... The hospital records are quite clear, Margaret continued. As is the restraining order Richard filed against Linda. Shall I read it? The whispers started. Judgmental eyes turned toward my mother, who seemed to shrink under their gaze. You forged those documents, I said, but my voice shook. Did I? Margaret's triumph blazed. Or did you just assume I was the villain because it was easier than facing the truth about your own family? Ryan stepped forward. Mom, stop. Not now, darling. She patted his cheek. The truth hurts, doesn't it? But sometimes we need to lance the wound to heal it. The room blurred. Everything I'd believed, everything I'd fought for, had it all been built on lies? Richard stood frozen by the bar, his face unreadable. My father wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. And my mother was crying. Well, Margaret raised her glass. Shall we return to our celebration? Unless anyone else has family secrets they'd like to share? I ran. Through the whispers, past the stairs, out into the cold night air. Behind me, I heard Ryan call my name, but I couldn't stop. I'd wanted revenge. Instead, I'd given Margaret exactly what she wanted. A perfect stage for her final act of destruction. The mansion's kitchen door creaked open at my touch. Inside, Margaret stood at the marble island, methodically burning documents one by one, the flames reflected in her eyes like trapped stars. I wondered who would come first, she said without looking up. The disgraced daughter or the betrayed son? Those aren't Richard's original documents you stole, are they? My voice was steadier than I felt. They're forgeries, just like everything else about you. She paused, a paper hovering over the flame. Does it matter? The damage is done. Your mother's reputation, your father's business, all destroyed. Just like you wanted to destroy me. Stop! Richard's voice cut through the darkness. He stepped out of the shadows, phone in hand. They're hearing everything, Margaret. The board, the police, everyone. Her hand trembled, the paper catching fire. You're recording me? We all are. Ryan emerged from the other doorway, his own phone raised. Behind him, my mother and father stood witness. Margaret's laugh turned hysterical. So this is your revenge? Making me confess to my crimes? No! I moved closer. This is me choosing to be nothing like you. The real documents are already with the authorities. The ones proving you forged evidence, committed fraud, and deliberately bankrupted innocent people. You have no idea what it's like, she hissed, clawing your way up from nothing, only to have people like your mother threaten everything you've built. My mother threatened nothing, I said. You did that yourself, with every lie, every manipulation, every person you destroyed to keep your secrets. I gave Ryan everything. You gave me a lifetime of lies, Ryan said quietly. And now you've lost everything anyway. Sirens wailed in the distance. Margaret's face contorted and she lunged for the burning papers. In her desperation, she knocked over the flame, sending it skittering across spilled alcohol from her earlier drinks. Fire exploded across the marble counter. Margaret screamed, reaching for the evidence even as flames licked at her designer sleeve. I moved without thinking, tackling her away from the inferno. We hit the floor hard as Richard and Ryan grabbed fire extinguishers. Why? Margaret whispered as we lay there, smoke swirling around us. Why save me after everything? Because revenge destroys everyone it touches. I helped her sit up as emergency lights flashed outside. And I choose to be better than that. The kitchen door burst open, uniformed officers flooding in. As they led Margaret away, she looked back once, her perfect facade finally cracking to reveal something almost human underneath. Ryan touched my shoulder. You okay? No, I admitted, but I will be. We all will be. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in destroying your enemy, but in refusing to become them. The envelope arrived on a quiet Tuesday, just like the day Margaret first walked into my pharmacy. Her precise handwriting hadn't changed, even if everything else had. I found Ryan in our garden, pulling weeds from around Mom's transplanted roses. The sight still struck me sometimes, how we'd rebuilt our relationship from the ashes of what we'd almost been. She's requesting visitors, I said, holding up the letter. First time since the sentencing. Ryan's hands stilled in the dirt. What are you thinking? I'm thinking about choices, about how revenge and forgiveness both change you. The kitchen door opened, and Mom stepped out with a tray of lemonade. She'd started wearing bright colors again, letting her hair go naturally gray. Dad followed with Richard, discussing plans for their newly merged business venture. Margaret's letter? Mom asked, seeing the envelope. I nodded. She says she's different now. That prison showed her what it's like to lose everything, just like she did to others. People like her don't change, Dad started, but Richard held up his hand. Maybe they do, he said quietly. Maybe they just need someone to show them how. Ryan stood, brushing dirt from his knees. We could go together, not as the people she hurt, but as the people who refused to let her destroy us. The roses caught the sunlight, their petals still damp from morning dew. Mom had planted them the day after Margaret's sentencing, not as a celebration of victory, but as a reminder that beautiful things could grow from painful soil. I'll drive, I decided. But first, there's something I need to do. At the pharmacy, I pulled out Margaret's original threat letter from my desk. The paper had yellowed slightly, its words less powerful than they'd once seemed. I added it to a small box with the other remnants of our shared past. Photos, documents, the evidence that had finally brought truth to light. The box fit perfectly in the garden, beneath the roses. Ryan helped me dig the hole, our hands working together in the earth our mothers had once fought over. Not quite forgiveness, I said as we covered it. Not quite revenge either, he replied. Maybe something in between. Mom brought over one last rose to plant, a white one, its thorns sharp, but its petals soft with promise. As we worked, I thought about Margaret sitting in her cell, writing letters to the family she'd tried to destroy, and the son she'd loved in her own broken way. Some wounds never fully heal. Some stories don't end with perfect closure. But sometimes, in the space between justice and mercy, we find something stronger than revenge, the power to choose who we become. The rose took root, reaching toward tomorrow's light.